The desert winds howled outside the steel walls of Outpost Car. Dust scraped across metal like a whispering threat. Inside, under flickering lights and rusted bars, the slave pens smelled of fear, blood, and old sweat. Rovin stepped through the checkpoint. He was tall, human, wearing a long brown coat and boots thick with sand. A guard nodded at him. No one asked questions. Rovin had a badge trader rank 3. That meant he had power. And today he was here for cargo. But this time, the cargo had names, faces. He walked down a row of pens, glancing left and right. Most of the captives didn't even look up. Their eyes were dull, used to pain. But then he stopped. In the last cell, chained to the wall by both wrists, was a woman. Her skin was soft blue, her body thin, starved. But her back was straight, proud. Her long silver hair was matted but still fell like silk over her shoulders. She was not alone. A small child, no older than 5, peeked out from behind her legs. The girl's eyes were wide and golden. She held a small cloth doll, filthy, broken, and clutched like life itself. The guard beside Rovin laughed, pointing. The widow, her man died in the mines. She and the pup came in last week. Soft, kind, herbivores, easy to break. You want to flip them together? Rovin didn't answer. He stepped closer to the bars. The alien woman looked up slowly, her eyes locking onto his. No fear, no anger, just tired calm. Then she spoke quiet. Clear. Sell me if you must. But please, don't let them hurt her. Her voice was soft, but it cut deep. Rovin said nothing. Not at first. But something inside his chest shifted, twisted, bent under weight he didn't expect. He looked at the girl again. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She just held the doll tighter and pressed closer to her mother's leg. What's her name? Rovin asked. The guard blinked hers. A, no chip, no name. We just tag M as lot 78A and 78B. Rovin nodded. Open the cell. The guard hesitated. Now? Yes. The gate creaked open. Rovin stepped inside. The woman didn't flinch. Her arms were bruised from the shackles, but she kept her head up. Slowly, he reached for the cuffs. A key turned. The chains fell. She caught herself before collapsing. Still, she didn't speak. The little girl peeked again. Rovin looked down. At her? I'm not here to hurt you, he said. The words felt strange coming out. He turned back to the guard. They're not ready for sale. It's taken for pre-market inspection. Medical and behavior evaluation. Abos won't like that, the guard muttered. Auctions tomorrow, I said. I'm taking them. Rovin's voice was calm, but final. The guard stepped aside. Rovin led the woman and her child. Out of the pen, no chains, no guards, no collars. Others stared, confused. No one stopped him. Rank 3 badge still carried weight here. They walked through the corridor, into the low red light of the exit tunnel. The girl limped, her steps unsteady. Rovin slowed down so she could keep up. In his small transport room, he opened the door and motioned for them to enter. The room was warm, clean. A small bed. Food packs on the table. The woman hesitated. This is not where slaves go, no, Rovin said. It's not. He handed the girl a fruit bar. Her tiny hands trembled as she took it, then bit. Ain't her. Eyes lit up like she hadn't tasted anything in days. The woman watched him carefully. Why are you doing this? She asked. Are you testing us before sale? No. Then what? Rovin didn't answer right away. He looked at the girl, now quietly eating in the corner, her legs pulled under her. You said one thing back there, he said softly. You didn't beg. You didn't plead for your own life, just hers. He turned to the alien woman again. You're not property, not anymore. Not while I breathe. The woman's lips parted, but no words came out. She just lowered her head. And for the first time, her shoulders shook. No sound, just silent tears. Rovin turned away, giving her space. Outside, the desert wind howled. Louder, but inside that room, for the widow and her daughter. The world had already changed. Asterisk, the wind outside grew louder that night. But inside Rovin's small transport quarters, there was silence. A kind of silence that wasn't empty but heavy. The alien woman sat by the wall, her daughter curled up beside her, now asleep with the fruit bar still clutched in one hand. Her silver hair lay over her shoulder like melted moonlight. Her eyes were open, unmoving, but she wasn't watching anything. She was listening, waiting, expecting betrayal. The kind she'd seen before. Rovin poured a cup of water and set it beside her without a word. Then he sat on the floor near the opposite wall, back against the metal, arms resting on his knees. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the girl's soft breathing. She finally looked at him again. "You lied to the guard," she said, voice quiet but not weak. "I did." "Why?" He looked at her directly. "Because they were going to sell you like livestock." Her expression didn't change. She said nothing for several seconds. "And you're not?" she asked, calm but sharp. Rovin's voice dropped to a near whisper. "I was supposed to be." That made her pause. He didn't explain further. He didn't say that he'd taken hundreds of units before humans, aliens, whoever fetched the highest credit. He didn't mention that his license was under review after a botched delivery on Tasser 9, or that he was sent here by his superior to handle the weak stock as a last chance. Instead, he just said, "I won't do it again." The woman looked down at her daughter. The little girl stirred and pressed closer into her mother's side, sensing the voices even in her sleep. "My name is Leah," she said at last. "And her name is Sorry." Rovin blinked. The name sounded soft, delicate, nothing like the tags he saw in the system, Lot 78A, 78B. For the first time, they felt like real people. Not numbers, not assignments. He gave a slight nod. "Rovin." Leah leaned her head back against the wall. "So what now, Rovin?" He stood, grabbed a blanket from the shelf, and gently placed it over Sorry. "Now we sleep," he said. "We talk more in the morning." But Rovin didn't sleep. He sat near the door, one hand near his sidearm. He wasn't afraid of them. He was afraid of what would happen if someone knocked. The outpost didn't ask many questions, but people noticed missing inventory. Traders didn't set up rooms for slaves. They'd lock them in crates or cells, not beds. And the longer he kept them, the more dangerous this got. His communicator lit. Up around dawn, a red notification. "Message from Car Outpost Command. Status update requested. Lot 78 scheduled for auction. Confirmed delivery or reassignment within 24 hours. Rovin stared at the screen. It slowly placed it face down. He heard movement. Sorry had woken and was trying to reach for the water cup without waking her mother. Her little hands were shaking, but her eyes sparkled when she managed to lift the cup. "Did you sleep?" she asked softly. Rovin gave her a small smile. "Not much." "You?" She nodded. "This place smells better." That made him chuckle under his breath. "I'll take that as a compliment." Leah opened her eyes, alert immediately. She checked her daughter first, then looked at him. Her face didn't soften. But her eyes didn't hold the same suspicion. As last night, Rovin handed her a sealed food pack. It's protein-based, not meat. She took it slowly, sniffed it, and after a moment, gave some to her daughter. They ate in silence again. But inside Rovin's head, pressure was building. He couldn't stay here. They couldn't stay here. So the next round of patrols would check inventory. If they were caught, he'd lose his license. They'd be retagged, maybe executed. Or worse? "You ever been off-world?" he asked, still. Not looking at her, Leah gave a slow nod. "Once, long ago. Before the mines, before slavery." He didn't ask her to finish. "I have a ship," he said. She stopped chewing. "You want to sell us somewhere else?" "No. Then what?" "I want to get you out of here." Silence again. "Why?" she asked. That was the question even. He couldn't answer. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was something in her voice back at the cell, the way she'd offered herself, but begged only for her child. Or maybe it was the look in the girl's eyes. Not fear, not hope. Just empty survival. "Don't know," Rovin said honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." He stood, opened a side compartment in the wall, and pulled out two old cloaks worn, dust-colored, designed to blend into the outpost crowds. "We leave tonight," he said. Leah stared at him for a long time. Then she took one cloak and wrapped it around her daughter. "I won't slow you down," she said. Rovan looked at her. "I'm not leaving you behind." That was the first time he saw her expression truly shift. Not just surprise, but the hint of something deeper. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. And outside the door, the desert wind kept howling as if warning them of the storm that was coming. Asterisk night fell like a curtain over Outpost Car. The lights grew dim, the heat from the day sinking into the ground, leaving only cold metal and colder eyes wandering the corridors. Most of the outpost slept or pretended to, but inside the small transport room Rovan, Leah, and little Sari were preparing for something that couldn't wait for morning. Rovan checked his pack against credits. Stolen ID chip, a water flask, and 2 cloaks. Nothing heavy, nothing that could slow them down. His mind kept cycling through old exit paths, security blind spots, and gate schedules. He knew the routines. He'd once used them to smuggle slaves in. Now he'd use them to smuggle 2 people. Lee sat near the wall, brushing Sari's tangled hair with her fingers. Her hands were thin, still trembling slightly from hunger and cold, but careful, loving. Sari giggled when her mother accidentally tickled the back of her ear. It was the first time Rovan had heard the girl laugh. "You're sure you're ready for this?" he asked Leah quietly. She looked up. "You don't have to ask that. We've been ready since we were caged." Fair answer, he thought. Still, something about the way she said it made his chest ache. Sari put on the oversized cloak Rovan gave her. It dragged on the floor, swallowing her tiny frame, but she smiled and spun once. "Do I look like a traveler?" "You look like trouble," Rovan replied, smiling slightly. Then came a buzz, a coded vibration on Rovan's wristband. He froze. One long buzz, too short. It was from Drail, a janitor he used to trade favors with who owed Rovan more than one. The code meant, "Security patrol rerouted. You have 10 minutes?" Rovan stood immediately. "We move now." Leah grabbed Sari's hand. The girl instinctively quieted, hiding her smile and focusing. Her training, her survival instincts, ran deep. Rovan led them through the back hallway of the traders' section, an old maintenance route barely used. Pipes lined the ceiling, dripping occasionally. Rats scattered across the floor. But it was quiet. Quiet meant life. They reached the outer loading docks just as 2 guards passed in the opposite direction. Rovan waited, motionless, until their footsteps faded. Then the ship came into view. It wasn't much, just a rusted mid-tier freighter with mismatched parts. The kind of ship no one looked at twice. It kept it under a false name for smuggling goods too shady for record. Logs. Now it was their only chance at freedom. As they approached, Leah suddenly stopped. Her body went still rigid. She looked left. A shadow moved at the far end of the dock. Someone was there. Rovan turned fast, pulling her behind a crate. He pressed. A finger to his lips. The figure walked slowly across the platform. Not a guard. He was too heavy, his uniform too clean. A rich one. Rovan recognized him, Harko Bren. He was the one originally assigned to take Lot 78 Leah and her daughter. He had paid in advance for exclusive rights, and he never forgot a face. If he saw them, no Sari sneezed. Rovan's heart jumped. Harko turned. Rovan whispered, "Run on my signal to the ship." He stood slowly, one hand near his weapon. Harko squinted in the dim light. "You," he said. "Rovan, what are you doing here? Checking on my cargo." Harko stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "That's funny. I thought my cargo disappeared from inventory last night." Rovan didn't move. They were reassigned. Harko laughed. "You think I didn't track the chip tags? They vanished right when your access code logged in." Rovan didn't wait. He drew his weapon and fired not at Harko, but at the control panel next to the ship's ramp. Sparks flew. The door dropped open. "Go," he shouted. Leah grabbed Sari and ran. Harko yelled, pulling a pistol. "You're dead, Rovan." Rovan fired again, a flash of red searing past Harko's shoulder. It was enough. The man dove for cover, cursing. Rovan ran after Leah and Sari. Inside the ship, he slammed the door behind him and locked it manually. Leah was already in the co-pilot seat, Sari curled under her cloak beside her. "You can fly?" he asked. "I can read," she replied. "You tell me what to press." Rovan jumped into the pilot chair. His fingers flew over controls. The engine sputtered, choked hand, then roared to life. Outside, alarms blared across the dock. Security breach. Unauthorized launch detected. All personnel respond. Too late. The ship pulled free of the landing clamps, lifted slowly, and shot upward through the stormy desert sky. Dust burst in a cloud below them as lights from the outpost shrank into the darkness. Sari looked out the window, eyes wide. "We're flying," she whispered. Leah didn't look out. She was watching Rovan. "You just made enemies in a very rich place," she said softly. "I've made worse," he replied. Leah reached down, took her daughter's hand, and then reached toward Rovan. Not to hold him, just to touch his arm, a silent thank you, a silent warning, and a promise of something more. Not yet family, not yet safe, but no longer slaves. Not tonight, not anymore. Asterisk. 3 days had passed since they escaped Outpost Car. The stars outside the ship stretched, like long white trails as they flew through jump lanes, far from any trade route. The old freighter groaned sometimes, its frame not meant for long travel, but it held together. Rovan checked the systems constantly. Fuel low, water filtration unstable, hull integrity questionable, but they were still alive. Inside the ship, the small sleeping quarters had been turned into a makeshift home. Blankets lay over crates. Leah had managed to clean and stitch old clothes to fit Sari better. The girl no longer flinched at every noise. She had even laughed again when Rovan pretended to get stuck in the supply hatch while searching for dry rations. Yet, behind the peace, tension still lived in every corner. Rovan knew the bounty had already been issued. There would be trackers, drones, traders who'd sell their own crew for half the price. Harko Bryn wouldn't forget, but he wouldn't forgive. Still, what haunted Rovan most wasn't the bounty. It was Leah's silence. She rarely spoke unless necessary. When she did, her voice was calm-controlled. But there was something behind her eyes, something locked deep. It bothered him. It's not because he needed her to talk, but because whatever she was hiding mattered. One evening while Sari slept, curled up on a pile of blankets in the corner, Rovan found Leah sitting alone in the engine room. She was holding something, a thin strip of woven metal, dull and scratched, but shaped like a bracelet. She turned it slowly in her hands, eyes distant. Rovan leaned on the doorframe. "What is that?" Leah didn't startle. She didn't even look at him. "My wedding band," she said quietly. "It was cut from the edge of my husband's spear. He made it before the war." Rovan stepped closer. "You said he died in the mines." She shook her head slowly. "No, that's what they told the records. But I was there." She finally looked up at him. They forced him to fight. For sport. Against other slaves. He was a gentleman, a farmer. He refused to kill, so they sent in one of the guards. Her voice cracked then just slightly. He didn't fight back. They beat him until he couldn't stand. Rovan stood in silence. "I held Sari while he died." She doesn't remember. But she stopped crying for 3 days afterward. "I thought she'd gone silent forever." Rovan swallowed hard. The room suddenly felt colder. "I'm sorry," he said, but the words felt small. Leah smiled, but it was a sharp, sad smile. "Why?" "You didn't kill him, no?" Rovan said. "But I worked with people who did." She turned the bracelet. "Once more, and now you risk your life for me." "I'm not trying to make things right," he said. "I just ... couldn't walk away." Leah studied him carefully. "That makes you dangerous. Why?" "Because men who act without knowing why, they're not doing it for mercy. They're doing it because something inside them broke." That made Rovan pause. Was she wrong? Before he could reply, a sharp alarm echoed through the ship. The nav system lit up bright red. Tracker signal locked. Proximity scan in range. Unidentified ship approaching. Rovan bolted toward the cockpit. Leah followed. He hit the console. A blinking pulsed behind them. Too close. Too fast. Someone's found us. Leah's voice dropped. Harco? No way to tell. The radar blinked again. They were being hailed. A message flashed on the screen. Prepare to be boarded. Stand down or be fired upon. Rovan looked at Leah. Get sorry. Hide her. Leah ran without hesitation. Rovan flipped switches, rerouting engine power. The ship trembled. His heart raced. But before he could pull them into an emergency drift, a bolt of energy slammed into the side of the freighter. The ship jerked sideways. Lights flickered. A second hit followed, shaking the entire cabin. They were under attack. Leah reappeared, breathless. She's under the supply panel. The ship's console sparked. Hull breach secondary bay. Damn it, Rovan hissed. They're trying to cripple us, not kill. They want us alive, Leah said darkly. Or, worsenly, one of us. The ship rattled again. One more hit, and they'd be dead in space. Rovan turned. I have one last card to play. Leah raised an eyebrow. What is it? He didn't answer. Instead, he ran to a compartment under the pilot seat and pulled out a box sealed and coded dot inside. A black disc, no larger than a hand. What's that? Stolen years ago. A stealth signal disruptor, illegal in every system. He slapped it onto the console and activated it. The radar screen shimmered. The pursuing ship blinked out, then returned, then vanished again. Now they can't track us. We've got 10 seconds. Rovan pulled hard on the thruster. The freighter dove into the nearest asteroid field. Metal groaned. Alarms blared. But the bounty hunter ship didn't follow. They were alone again. Broken. Breathing. Alive. When the silence returned. Leah stood by the viewport staring out at the distant stars. Her hand still shook. ROVA end. Sat down, exhausted. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. She turned toward him. No, she said. You pulled us out of something worse. He looked up at her. For the first time, she smiled. A real one. Small, honest. And for a brief, quiet second, it felt like family. Asterisk. They drifted through the dark stretch of space, the freighter's engines humming softly beneath the silence. The stars outside the viewport were cold pinpricks, indifferent to the small lives tangled inside this fragile ship. Rovan sat at the controls, his hands steady despite the weariness that clung to his bones. Beside him, Leah cradled Sari, who was curled up in her lap. Her tiny breaths slow and even in the safety of the moment. Rovan glanced at them, feeling a sharp pang twist in his chest. They were no longer just cargo or prisoners. They were his responsibility. His family, though none of them had said the word aloud. The past days had been a whirlwind, fleeing bounty hunters, makeshift repairs, stolen moments of quiet. But the outpost's reach was long, and he knew they wouldn't be safe for long. His communicator, long since destroyed to avoid tracking, had been replaced with a salvaged signal jammer, but that was only a temporary shield. Where to now? Leah asked quietly, not looking up from her daughter. Rovan rubbed his face. There's an old colony on the edge of the solar system called Vesta Station. Out of most trade routes forgotten by many, but it's a start. Leah nodded. Place to hide. Sari stirred, lifting her sleepy head. Papa. She whispered, eyes blinking against the soft glow of the instrument panels. Rovan smiled, warmth flooding his tired heart. Not quite yet, little one. But soon. The child's small hand reached for his. He took it gently. The weight of a promise pressing on him. Suddenly, the ship jolted violently, knocking them against their seats. Alarms screamed through the cabin. The hull creaked like it might shatter at any moment. Impact detected. Rovan shouted, scanning the console. Debris field ahead. Brace for collision. Leah grabbed Sari close, shielding her as the freighter slammed into a spinning cloud of rock and ice. The lights flickered, the engine sputtered, and for a Terrifying moment. The world went dark. When the emergency lights blinked on, Rovan checked their status. Hull breach in the rear compartment. Damage is serious, but we're still alive. Leah's eyes were wide with fear. Can we fix it? Rovan's jaw tightened. We have to, or we won't make it to Vesta. The hours that followed were a race against time. With careful hands and limited tools, Rovan patched the breach as best he could. Leah assisted her species' delicate fingers, surprisingly steady, even under pressure. Sari watched with wide eyes, clutching her doll but quiet, as if sensing the gravity of their fight for survival. As dawn approached in the vast emptiness of space, Rovan leaned back, exhaustion crashing over him. We made it this far, he said quietly. Leah smiled softly, because he didn't give up on us. Looked at her, the weight of their journey settling deep inside. We're a family now, he said. And families fight together. Sari yawned, snuggling between them. For the first time since the nightmare began, there was hope, fragile but real, outside. The stars kept watch as the freighter limped toward a distant sanctuary, carrying 3 souls bound by more than fate, by choice. Asterisk, the small freighter hovered silently near the edge of Vesta Station's orbit, its battered frame barely holding together from the trials of the journey. Below them, the station was a dim cluster of lights against the dark void, a forgotten haven for those who slipped through the cracks of the galaxy's strict laws. Here no one asked questions. Here the desperate could disappear. Rovan steered the ship toward an old docking bay, its rusted arms stretching out like tired fingers. The airlock hissed open, and the trio stepped into a narrow corridor lit by flickering panels. Leah kept a tight hold on Sari's hand, watching every shadow with cautious eyes. They moved quickly but quietly, blending with the station's scattered inhabitants, scruffy traders, exiled aliens, and silent watchers. None of them paid attention to a ragged woman with silver hair, a small child clinging to her side, and the human who had risked everything for them. For days, they found shelter in a hidden sector of the station, a place where the walls whispered. Old secrets and the past could be left behind. Leah took a job in the market, selling herbs and rare plant skills from her home planet that no one else possessed. Sari began to smile again, her laughter a fragile melody that chased away. The cold Rovan worked with the station's mechanics, patching the freighter and earning credits with odd jobs. But beneath their growing safety, a shadow loomed. One evening, as the trio shared a quiet meal in their cramped quarters, a sudden pounding on the door shattered the fragile peace. Voices outside barked in harsh tones, security enforcers with no patience for strangers. Leah's heart thundered. They've found us. Rovan moved to block the door, but it was kicked open. 3 men stepped inside, eyes cold and hungry. You're coming with us, the leader growled. The bounty's still on your heads. Sari clung to her mother, terrified. But before the men could advance, Leah stepped forward, her voice steady and fierce. You will not take us. A tense silence followed. Then Rovan drew his weapon, standing beside her. This ends now, he said, or you'll answer to all of us. The men hesitated, their bravado faltering under the combined defiance. Outside, whispers spread.
I'll be.
Community gathered, ready to defend those who had become part of their hidden world. In that moment, Rovan, Leah, and Sari weren't just fugitives. They were family. And together, they would fight to protect the home they had found against the darkness that chased them. Asterisk, the tension in the small quarters was thick enough to cut. Yet something unspoken passed between Rovan, Leah, and Sari. They had faced darkness together now. The final test awaited. The men who barged in still hesitated, unsure how to respond to this unyielding trio backed by the murmurs of the gathered station dwellers. Rovan's weapon stayed steady. But it wasn't the gun that held power. It was the bond between them, stronger than chains or fear. Suddenly, one of the attackers lunged forward. But before he could reach Leah, Sari stepped out, tiny hands. Glowing with a strange light, a warmth radiated from her, a healing pulse that slowed the man mid-strike. He staggered, confusion flashing in his eyes. Leah's voice was firm, calm. Leave us. This child is not what you think. The crowd outside surged, their unified presence a wall no one dared breach. Realizing the fight was lost, the attackers retreated, their threats fading into echoes. Rovan lowered his weapon, relief washing over him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, a recording chip containing proof of the outpost's slave ring, corruption, and lies. He played it aloud. The voices, the transactions, the cruelty exposed, whispers spread. The station's leaders nodded. Our bounty was lifted. The darkness that hunted them had been burned away by truth. Leah looked at Rovan, her eyes shimmering. You saved us all. He smiled softly. We saved each other. The little girl climbed into Rovan's arms and whispered, Papa. Rovan's heart swelled. He took Leah's hand, slipping a simple ring onto her finger made from scraps, but more valuable than any crown. You were never for sale, he said quietly. And now, you're home. In the quiet that followed, beneath distant stars and soft hums of the station, three souls found a new beginning, not as captives or fugitives, but as a family bound by hope, courage, and unbreakable love. The end. Asterisk.